When I say getting a good soil sample, that means that we want to go down into the soil roughly 6 inches deep, and in Cherokee County lots of times that's hard to do, and take a slice of the soil. But good means that you get a soil probe out of at least 12 to 15 spots. So we're going to get a sample here out of that many spots, different areas of soil or different areas of the garden. Like I said, there may have been something different that was done in certain areas, and whatever that is there didn't want to come up. You've got to get, research has shown, 12 to 15 samples in order for it to average out to be pretty well what the whole sample, the whole garden is. If you just get a sample or 2 or 5, if you happen to have got through that one spot that was potting soil, or the one spot where some manure was dug, was brought up and dug into the ground, then you're going to really bias that sample. So we're going to take about 15 samples out of this little 10 by 10 area, and then we'll be right back. Okay, up to now we've been just talking about getting a regular garden started, and a lot of you I know have already done that part. You've already looked at the amount of sunlight that you get. You already know that you got a good soil. You already have done several things to improve that soil, and that's all good and dandy. But with a new garden, we pulled a soil sample, and we're going to want to make sure that we have all the nutrients available for the first year here on this garden. So we've tilled it up so that we know that that's where we're going to have our garden. We've already pulled our soil sample before we tilled it. The reason I like to do that is in case there's something that you can't, if something's growing real good and you can't put your garden there, why, you've had a better chance of finding that out with a soil probe than if you just tilled it up. And of course we hit some stumps and things like that whenever we were tilling. That's going to be a lot more effort on the gardener to get that taken care of, because it's going to compete big time with anything that you put in there. But start with a little 10 by 10 garden like that, and that way it won't overwhelm you and you won't just give up. Now when we pulled a soil sample, I took about 15 or so cores out of the deal, put them in this bucket. Then's when you've got to really mix this real well in the bucket. If you don't, you're liable to bring us a pint of soil that is from 1 or 2 cores, and that will defeat the purpose of taking as many cores as you did. So take 12, 15 cores, mix them extremely well. Take about a pint or a little more of that, bring it to the office. We've got soil sample bags if you want to come by and get a bag and then take it out and do your sample and put it in a bag instead of bringing it in a baggie or something like that. Why, that's good too. But once we get the soil sample back, there'll be recommendations on the fertility of your soil. And this is where I hope that some of you that have been gardening for a while, this will start to be a little bit of use to you. There's 4 fertilizers here, and they're all for different things, and there's different reasons to use them. And I want to take a little time now to go through that, so that hopefully, even if you're a long-time gardener, if you pull a soil sample, you know nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and what you need, maybe this will mean a little more to you. First off, I want to start with this one here, and the price of these range anywhere from $14 to $30 for the same 50-pound bag. So You know, a soil sample costs $10. If you put the wrong kind of fertilizer out, that's just going to cost you money year after year. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe it's bad for the environment, any number of things. So we kind of want to go through the reasons to use these ones and kind of what's been done in the past. Probably the thing that people are most familiar with is 10-20-10. That's what most everybody, whenever they first started gardening or first started doing something, was give me a bag of 10-20-10. You put it on your garden, you're in good shape and everything worked good, and if it's working good, why change? Well, that's 10% nitrogen, 20% phosphorus, and 10% potassium. The way this works in the soil is that 10% is actually the fuel that causes the plants to grow. The 10% is what, if you get too much of the nitrogen, you'll cause something to burn up or something like that. So that's a number that is really critical as to what you put out. You've got 10% here. On this one you've got 9. On this one you've got 19. On this one you've got 46. So 4600 has 4 times as much nitrogen as 10-20-10. If you're looking to grow a garden and all you need is nitrogen, you don't really want to put out any phosphorus or potassium. Where this gets to be a problem is the 20% phosphorus always stays in the soil. You don't grow very much of it out. You grow a lot of the nitrogen out, so year after year you grow this out, you got this left, and you end up with a real high phosphorus soil. We also need a lot of potassium because it does manage to leach out through the years too. Not nearly like nitrogen, but it does leave. So this 20% just stays there and stays there and stays there. Not that it's going to cause you any problems particularly, but you'd be better off to use something that's a little bit more balanced to what you need. This 9-24-24, of course, if you look at that, this urea has about 10 times as much nitrogen as that, but your phosphorus is 24 and your potassium is balanced here at 24. So even though you're light on nitrogen, this one here, you're a little bit more balanced on your phosphorus and potassium. People talk about what do they put out in the fall, what do you need to put out in the fall. Not much nitrogen because you're not going to be growing much, but phosphorus and potassium, you put it out in the fall and you will, it will work into the ground through over the winter. Now if you're tilling a garden and you have the option of working it into the ground, it doesn't really have to be put out. So on a garden like this, if it calls for a lot of phosphorus and potassium, this is what we would want to use. Now after we get everything pretty well balanced, but we still know that we need some phosphorus and potassium, especially on yards, 19-19 is a good one to use. That way you're not doubling up on your phosphorus, but you're still getting quite a bit of nitrogen. The 4600 is only twice as much nitrogen. So this is good year after year after year. The 19-19 is. This one is good for basic all-around starter fertilization, winter fertilization, things like that. 10-20-10 has really gotten to be at the bottom of my list because you're putting a lot of phosphorus out that you probably don't need. Urea, this one costs $14 a bag. And if your soil sample shows that you've got plenty of phosphorus and potassium, you just want to put nitrogen out, this is your choice, 4600. You want to put it out sparingly because it is hot, and if you put too much of it out, you can burn up your plants. So let's use it if we need to, but use it kind of sparingly. Lots of times recommendations that we'll make will be 4 or 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So when you measure out 3 or 4 pounds, or like this garden, if it's 10 by 10, you measure out a pound or so and sling it out there, you won't really feel like you've done very much, but that's about all your garden can stand.